Morning, people. This is your man Chris. Yeah. Before I get started, let me give a special shout out to Nikki. And now let me just, it's kind of depressing, man, to talk about this in like, a short amount of time. But had the passing of Prince, who I considered a great, great black man, and now talking about Muhammad Ali. It's depressing. I mean, even though I thought Prince was a great man, I also thought at one time he was a man who had an iron will. But he succumbed to drugs. I'm just like, well, he was a great man because he helped a lot of people get into the music business and helped them succeed. So I can't take that away from him. But Ali was the real deal. In fact, if you see that picture up there, I have a picture up there of him with Martin Luther King. And to me, he was a great man who happened to be a boxer. He just wasn't a great boxer. He was a great boxer, but to me, he was a great man who happened to be a great boxer. His stand against the Vietnam War, which was, basically a war against the spread of communism, and him refusing to go and him standing, by his convictions, is pretty admirable. And all right, let me not try to front. Even though I'm old school, when Muhammad Ali was going through a whole bunch of his stuff, I was just a little kid. But I remember when I was a kid that hey, Muhammad Ali was loved. I mean, he was loved by black people. You have some black people who said, "Oh, he has a big mouth, man. Somebody need to shut his mouth up." And there'd be big arguments. But I know the adults used to talk about this dude for hours on end. It was animated, and you could tell that people admired him. But on the other hand, you could tell that a lot of white people did not like him, called him a coward, a draft evader. There were some people who refused to call him by Muhammad Ali, refused. They called him Cassius Clay. They refused to use his Muslim name. And as a kid, I was like starting school, and I started, I was like, I had to wonder, like, what's going on now? What's this big contrast where, people in the, the black people, I wouldn't even call it the hood. I just see people in the neighborhood loved him, and white people, a lot of white people hate him. Like, to be honest with you, if he had died way back then, he wouldn't have all this thing about he's a hero and all this tributes. There was a lot of people in white media that did not like him at all. So I doubt that people would be celebrating him right now the way, then the way they are right now. But I remember as a kid going to school, I used to like one of the first things I realized going to school was that white adults are smarter than black adults. You learn that just from speaking. You realize that, this don't make no sense was bad English. Was this doesn't make any sense? That's how the teacher told you that's where it's supposed to be. So you realize that even though you heard this all the time in the neighborhood, it was bad English. So you just like, okay, white people are smarter than us. You learned at the school that they have more money, they have better living, they have better living environments than we do. And then when you go home and watch TV props the white man up to be like these godlike, Jesus Christ is white, so they're like godlike creatures they're kind, they're benevolent, and all this. So you hear all of this and you say, well, all right, if they're so kind, benevolent, and then how come they hate, how come they hate Muhammad Ali, and how come they hate, black people? Do they hate us just because our skin is dark? So as a kid, I'm trying to figure this out. I'm just like, okay, racism. Now I already know that by the time I was going to school and stuff, they'd already killed Martin Luther King, and I'm just like, okay, I'm trying to understand this. I'm like, well, maybe they hate us for a different reason. So I started to take a look at us. I'm like, yeah, okay, let's give it to them. Let's say that they're smarter than us. They have more money. They have power. Let's just say that, all right, they're genetically better than us. Why would they hate us because of that? I mean, if they're smarter than us, then they should, they say, well, hey, if they're not as smart as we are, we cut them some slack. So, on TV, they make them out as that they're like these great, wonderful people who are going to look out for the little man. And, I'm looking at black people and I'm just like, well, look, we aren't that bad. And I actually am glad I was a little kid then and not a little kid now, because if I was a little kid now, if I was thinking in those kind of thoughts, I would see that we celebrate drug dealing, we celebrate crime. That I'll probably think if I was a kid now that Beyonce was the most beautiful girl in the world, and I would see that the man she married happened to be, what white people call a drug dealer. So I'd have to be like, well, okay, it seems like a drug dealer is the thing to be, even though the white people say being a drug dealer is a bad thing. It could lead to murder and all kinds of other stuff. If you want the most beautiful girl in the world, you got to be a drug dealer. And I mean, in the hood, you see the drug dealers. They try to get the closest thing to Beyonce they can get, or beyond it. That's what you see. So I'm glad I'm not a little kid now. I'd be real conflicted. I'd be like, well, maybe it's the reason why white people hate us because I mean, black men are killing each other left and right, and they didn't have the internet when I was a kid. But now that the internet, you go to learn that black women are just like, black women are bed wenches. They give their youth away to the criminals and the street people, and then they try to bamboozle you into believing that they're good women when they're in their 30s and 40s. They try to bamboozle the good men. I mean, you learn all of this on the internet. That these black women are no good, and you're hearing all of this stuff on the internet, not from white people, but actually black men on the internet saying this stuff. So I was a kid right now. I'm like, well, damn, we really fucked up. Maybe the white people have good reason to be racist against us. I mean, once I kid, hopefully, well, the one thing we have going for us right now is that Barack Obama is the president. But even then, if I was a little kid now, I'd say there's a lot of black people who hate Barack Obama. They're like, he's not really black and he hasn't done anything for us. So if I was a kid right now, I'd be real confused. But anyway, back to my point, right? Because, now that I'm an adult, I realize a lot of that stuff you hear on TV is just propaganda when white people make themselves be these godlike creatures. That's all just BS. They'll rape, they'll rape, kill, pillage, and anything when it's come to getting some land, which is how they got this land. But Muhammad Ali, a lot of times people I hear people talk about, and they would argue, they wouldn't even just be talking about boxing. They would be talking about Vietnam and communism and all this stuff. And I'm like looking as a kid, like the internet wasn't around. If they had the internet, I'd have jumped on the internet to check all this stuff out. You had to go to the actual library, read newspapers and stuff like that to get information on this stuff that you were talking about. Because even though I was a smart kid, a lot of that stuff was beyond me. I'm just like, damn. But Muhammad Ali brought up some fascinating conversations among adults, and there was impassioned conversations a lot of times. And I was like, damn, Muhammad Ali is a man who, he he um he creates a lot of fear when people talk about him. I'm just like, wow, I mean, this was even when they wasn't talking about boxing. People talk about his boxing matches and stuff like that, and I'm just like, they talk about how he's being depressed and how people are disrespecting him and trying to oppress him. And I was just like, wow, Muhammad Ali was a figure. He was definitely, and that's why I put a picture of him up there with Martin Luther King, even though I wouldn't, say he was as great for the racial struggle as Martin Luther King was. He created a whole lot of conversation about that because I remember that because I used to hear the adults. I wasn't a stupid kid to try to get involved in that stuff, but I hear the stuff. The adults were talking. I was just like, man, I'd be trying to like understand what's this going on and try to figure out, what's what. And being that you're a kid and you can't really grasp a lot of these concepts, you just let the years go by and you try to like as you become older and wiser, you just like okay, you understand it little by little as the years go on. Because you wonder about this stuff, and sometimes you want to ask adults, but sometimes adults would give you answers without you even asking. You just listen to them talk. Other times you don't want to like even if you did ask them, sometimes the answers wouldn't make any sense to you. So you just like just be cool. And I learned stuff along the way. So but yeah, Muhammad Ali was something else. Like I said, even though I'm old school, I can't, a lot of stuff that was going on with him was before my time, but still. Hearing the adults talk about him, the way they talked about him, the animated faces and stuff, he was a great dude. And the fact that he stood by everything that he said, it wasn't like he was saying, I'm going to do this thing. Like he turned around and sold out and did something else. It was like, no. And I heard a woman say something about him having the 9 kids. I'm just like, from what I heard, he took care of all of those 9 kids. Even though it was by different women, he made sure the kids knew each other. There was nothing about them being financially not taken care of or them being ignored by him. He's supposed to look out for all of his kids, no matter who who mothers were and all of that. So you don't hear any things about him being a deadbeat dad or anything like that. He made sure his kids, and that's one thing I got to give him respect for. Now that he's passed, I'm pretty sure he's made sure that his state, his kids are going to be taken care of. He didn't die like Prince with no will and not looking out for the people. The one thing I'm disappointed about Prince things, I figured he'd at least look out for Sheila E. It seemed like Sheila E. was his rock. But now that he got a whole bunch of siblings he probably even barely knows fighting over his money, and Ali didn't go. I don't think he went out like that. And you have to say like, hey, Layla Ali, she really came into her very own. Even though first she seemed like she was in the father's shadows, but she is a champion in her own right. So he was a great father. I know he didn't really want her to box, but she turned out to be just as bad as he was. So what can you say? But it's pretty sad, to hear that he passed away. But he did make it to the age of 74, and so he had a good long life, man. You saw pictures of, he's lived a good life. A lot of people, if I like back when I was a kid, from hearing how people used to white people talk about Muhammad Ali, I would never have guessed that he would die like a hero, to the world, because even back then the world was like, they said he was one of the most recognized men in the whole world, and a lot of people don't like him talking this stuff, but he was his own marketing tool. He was like he was his very own marketing agency. His fights were called super fights back in the day. I mean, he got his bro. A lot of people want him to be shut the hell up, and I think Ken Norton broke his jaw in one fight. But that didn't shut him up. He fought the dude a lot too late on and beat him. So, you know, um, it's just sad. I mean, like, even though Prince, he felt, to me, he didn't have the iron will because he let himself get addicted to that drug. But he was still a good dude. He was a great dude. Definitely a great artist. And to hear him pass, and now hearing Muhammad Ali passing too, it's just those two great black men removed from this planet. So it's sad, but this is my tribute to him because I admired him, and it's not that I just admired him. Like when I was a kid, I could tell that a lot of the adults who were talking about him, even the ones who said he had a big mouth, they admired this man. He's almost worshipped. So, and to be honest with you, from him, people talking about him gave me a lot of creative thoughts on trying to learn what a lot of things were about. And I'd say he's probably maybe he generated more conversation and more controversy than anybody I can think of. During my childhood, because I'm just like, because definitely had my mind working, trying to figure out what in the hell is going on. That man, people really talk about him, they get impassioned speeches, and it was something else. And that's why I'm saying that I think that he was just a great man who happened to be a boxing man. Yeah, he was a great boxer, but to me, I think he was a great man who just happened, boxing was his platform, but he was a great man even without boxing. Um, but anyway, that's my views, on Muhammad Ali. How he basically affected my life. And what I think of when I think of Muhammad Ali. So I don't plan on making any videos. In fact, I've just realized my last two videos are like rest in peace videos, which is not cool. But I hope anyone who's listening to my voice, you have a good summer, have a good safe summer, good peaceful summer, and thanks for listening. Peace.